We're here with Mr. Jay Hailey. And what year were you bar president?
In 1980 and 1981.
And where are you from?
Originally born in Beaumont, Texas, but when I was 12 years old, we moved to Dallas, came down here to Austin to go to law school in 1965. I've lived here ever since.
Why'd you go to law school?
Probably would have answered it much differently back when I was thinking about becoming a lawyer. I didn't have anyone in my family who had ever been a lawyer, didn't know any lawyers, not sure I'd ever even talk with a lawyer, before I came to law school. So I only had a very indirect idea of what a lawyer was. They always seemed to be people who were in the middle of things, and I wanted to be in the middle of things. I've always had a sense of things just aren't right, and I want to do something that makes a difference. Today, when you say it, it sounds a little naive and somewhat unrealistic, but I think that's really it. I want to do something where you could do something significant.
When you were in law school, were you any kind of elected official there?
When I came to law school, I was married. At the end of my first year of law school, my wife announced that we were going to have a baby. I didn't have a whole lot of time for outside activities. I saw a poster in the law school for a Ford Foundation grant, be a legislative intern, inside look at the Texas legislature. And I was able to do that. I could stay in law school. They'd give me law school credit. And most importantly, for our circumstances, they'd pay me. So I was assigned to the Senate Jurisprudence Committee. My boss, the chairman of the committee, was a state senator from Austin. His name was Charles Herring. That's very relevant to my whole legal career. I was there when Barbara Jordan came to the legislature, and that was quite an event. I mean, first black woman to be elected to the legislature. No one was quite sure how that would work and whether she'd be accepted by a very male-dominated, good old boy state senate. I was in the room where it happened, and I got to see firsthand a lot of interesting things. Wasn't expecting to stay in Austin to practice law, but after I finished my internship, Senator Herring said, would you like to come be a clerk at our law firm? I did that my last year of law school with no prospect of a job, and at that time there were 5 partners. So the firm was called Small, Herring, Craig, Workentine, and Shannon. No associates. I graduated and had some interviews in Dallas and Houston, and just unexpected to me, they say, hey, would you like to work here? Just opportunity I could pass up. So I took a job as the first associate at the origin firm in Austin of Jackson Walker, and I practiced here for about 25 years.
What made you go for the Austin bar president?
It wasn't something I aspired to. With that tiny little firm, it was kind of amazing the bar history that it had. The name partner, Clint Small, he was one of the early presidents, was in the Travis County Bar Association. And then he later became state bar president. And then a few years later, Fred Workentine was the president of the Travis County Bar Association. Then he later became a state bar director. He came in and said, I think I want to appoint you to the grievance committee. I don't know anything about that. He said, that's okay, you'll learn. And so at a pretty early age, I was the youngest member of the Travis County Grievance Committee. I was around some amazing lawyers. I got to know them very, very well. And the chair of the committee was Jack Eisenberg. He became somewhat of a mentor. Most of the cases that came before us were resolved amicably, but we had a couple of really hard cases. So that was an eye-opening experience. That was really hard.
Is that what led you to run for Austin Bar?
And I drafted into it. It was more of a selection than it was an election. A bunch of people went off in a room, and then they came back out and said, Jay, we want to nominate you for president. What do you mean? I was 36 years old. That was a surprise, and I went back and talked to Workentine and just asked them, I said, well, what do y'all think? And I'm pretty young to be doing this. You think I should do it? And they said, absolutely, you should do it. That was 1980. I didn't have a platform. Try hard not to embarrass myself and not disgrace my law firm or my law partners. So it was a lot of on-the-job training, there, and a lot of good mentors. We met once a month and had lunch. It was a very collegial, social environment. There wasn't a whole lot of business to attend to. But pretty early on, I was given the task that really consumed most of the time I was president, the district judges and the district attorney and the county attorney complaining about the level of funding, that they were woefully underfunded, for what they needed to be able to have a good justice system, both civil and criminal. And they couldn't seem to get the attention they felt like they needed from the Travis County commissioners who control all the money. People were more focused on spending money on roads rather than personnel, like judges and salaries and court reporters. They needed an advocate because the judges were afraid to kind of speak up because they were elected and they just didn't want to get involved in the politics of that situation. The district attorney and county attorney, and they were more willing to kind of speak out. So we had a number of meetings, a number of hearings with the commissioner's court. I think we made good progress on that. I think we did end up building a coalition of people who are willing to stand up and speak about that issue.
What did you enjoy most about being the Austin Bar president?
I learned some leadership skills. I learned how to operate in a public forum.
Tell me about your career after being the bar president.
After that, I kind of followed the normal routine for 4 or 5 years, I guess. I was the district representative from Travis County to the state bar. When I started out with all this, I was doing a lot of different things, but by that time I was doing exclusively real estate. Joined the real estate section of the bar and became very active. I got it kind of on the speaking circuit for a number of years relating to real estate development and real estate lending.
Are you currently practicing?
Fair to say that I've actually retired now. Now I do all pro bono work. I feel like I'm still practicing law, but I don't charge anyone. And I found out that if you don't charge people to do the work, you get a lot of clients. The business is great.
But do you feel that the practice of law in Austin has changed since you were president?
Up through mid-'80s, we were a second-tier city. There was a lot of sophisticated litigation, important litigation that went on in Austin simply because it was the state capital. But beginning in the mid-'80s, then it began to develop, all the high-tech stuff came in. There were a lot of lawyers that didn't know each other. Specialization became more and more significant. People very early on started specializing to the point now where you come out of law school and you're immediately put into a slot. When I started practicing, I did everything. And drawing a will or drawing a contract in the morning, and they'd be in court in the afternoon. There was no distinction between being a transactional lawyer or a corporate lawyer. Everybody knew how to litigate.
So mental health is an issue in the legal community. Through your career, how did you protect your mental health?
Well, it helps to have an understanding wife. She would rein me in periodically and just say, spend too much time in the office. Pace of practice has become so fast. It is much more difficult now to have a life outside the law. You need to have a moral compass, You just need to have certain principles that you just don't violate.
Throughout your whole career, what was the hardest moment?
Late 80s or early 90s, that was a terrible, terrible crash of the economy because it affected real estate and banking, the two things that I did the most. The bottom fell out of things. Most of my clients went broke. People I knew went to jail. Marriages were broken up. Lives were run.
How'd you recover?
Slowly. Building back a practice was difficult. That happened to everyone. All of us who went through that learned lessons from it.
What's the highest point of your career?
I was involved from the beginning on the redevelopment of Highland Mall, which now is an ACC campus. It was an old, dead, abandoned mall. Through that project, I also got hired by the city of Cedar Park to do a similar kind of project there to kind of create a new downtown. Worked on the Domain. I represented Simon on the residential component of the Domain. Represented Apple when they first came to town.
If there was an incoming bar president, what kind of advice would you give them?
To do everything different than what I did. I was unprepared. I think it's something you ought to prepare yourself for and spend some time deciding what it is you have that would benefit the bar and make that your goal. I think we really need to focus on the poor. A lot of the inequities that exist between the East and the West is a result of inequitable access to justice. People not protecting their property because they don't know they need to make a will, pass on the generational wealth. So it gets tangled up in probate and they end up having to sell the property. So I just think we really need to do more to make justice more readily available.
For new lawyers that are just getting licensed, what kind of advice would you give them as they start their career?
I had the advantage of being with a small firm, forced to learn a lot of different things. It was an incredible way to learn. That's a luxury that many young lawyers don't have now. Law firms want to put them to work quickly as possible in a place they can become profitable. If you do that, become a lifetime learner. Sooner or later, whatever it is you're doing is going to become obsolete, and you're going to have to shift gears. I had to make mid-course corrections a number of times, reinvent yourself, and be confident enough you can retool yourself to do something else. And I think your career would last much, much longer.